Okay, so some of you might be familiar with that one trend amongst Smash Brothers YouTubers where they go through the entire roster of Smash Ultimate and tell you which characters they would permanently delete from the game if they had to cut the roster down by exactly half. Now, I'd absolutely love to make one of these videos, however, you wouldn't watch it. So let's do it with TF2 instead. Okay, so elephant in the room, we can't divide the number 9 evenly in half. And no, Demo Man and Demo Knight are not two separate classes, only P-brains think that. So for the sake of clarity, we're going to be rounding down, so this video is pretty much just, if I was forced to delete 4 TF2 Mercs, which ones would they be? So the main criteria of my deletion are both fun and balance, in that I'm going to try and keep the balance of the game as consistent as possible, whilst also keeping the most fun classes. If a class is extremely overpowered and incredibly unfun to play as, or to fight against, then they have a much higher chance of being chopped from this list. Now along that note, let's actually do some chopping. Who would be the first Merc I would permanently delete from the game if I had to? And well, I have a feeling this is going to be a pretty uncontested choice. There are a lot of valid criticisms towards Sniper that people just seem to brush off because apparently we didn't have any of these issues or complaints about him before the bot crisis. And to the copious amounts of people that still hold that opinion, I have to ask, when was a group of bad actors abusing something never not a good reason to change it? TF2, just like with every other online game under the sun, has evolved over time. And if there has been something lying dormant in the game for many years that we have not been able to abuse until now, then that is just as valid a reason as anything else in order to change it. Or in the case of this video, remove it. So, Sniper is the first Merc I would delete from the game if I had to. And funny enough, it seems the people working on TF2 actively agree with me to an extent. Sniper is insanely strong, he completely and utterly shuts down the game, and the counterplay to him is just insanely unfun. When I die to something like a shotgun in TF2, I really feel, wow, I should have hit him first, and if I had done this properly, then I could have won that battle. But if I die to a sniper in TF2, I think, wow, I really should have wiggled around a bit more. So, Sniper's the first one to go, no complaints from me there, let's move on. Now, I'm letting you know that this is the part in the video where I would put a sponsorship if I had one, but I don't. So instead, let's talk about a couple of classes I will not be removing. The first one is Scout. Scout has to be one of the best designed characters in all of shooters. Insanely fun to play, insanely rewarding, incredibly high skill ceiling. The man has it all. I love playing Scout, but I very rarely do because I'm not very good at him, but I also really enjoy watching Scout footage as it's always very dynamic. So Scout is a fantastically designed class and I feel he has to stay in TF2. And speak of the devil, there is no universe in which we are removing classes and Soldier would ever be on that list for anyone. Yes, I know, Soldier is a very brain-dead and easy class to play, but that's only because his skill floor is so low. Everything else he can do is what makes him one of the most iconic characters in TF2 and all of shooters. Soldier is an incredibly versatile class. He can fit into any battle situation, any team composition, any of the sort. He can play a multitude of roles, and overall can be really fun to play. And he's not without his weaknesses as well. I think Soldier is a very well versatile and balanced class. Yes, he might be a bit easy to play, but just like with everything else in this game, Soldier gameplay is as dynamic as you want to make it. And I think Soldier is probably the class with the most potential when it comes to dynamic gameplay. So if Soldier is staying, there is no doubt in my mind about that. Alright then, let's return to the chopping block. Who am I getting rid of next? I have a feeling a lot of people aren't going to like this one. To summarise the problem to the best extent I could, and I know this is by no means a vast definition of the issue, Engineer is a class that slows the game down. And Engineer is also a class that is at its strongest when the game is slowed down. There are just no penalties to stacking engineers indefinitely. You can win every single game just by stacking engineers and keeping your sentries apart from each other. There is nothing anyone can ever do about it. We've all seen the 4 engineers hiding on Badwater and they just slow the game down indefinitely. Now this is by no means an extensive comprehensive list of all of the issues with Engineer, and I'm sorry I don't actually have any videos to recommend you on this topic. And I'm also sorry as I know Engineer is probably the most popular class in the game, and well, he is anyway at least amongst my audience, but Engineer is just too strong. Now I don't think removing cooperative engineering is the answer, I actually think that is a terrible suggestion to the issue. The name of the game is Team Fortress 2, and I know teamwork is a bit of a myth when it comes to TF2, but if you take away those abilities for people to have teamwork, well, you're just left with a fortress, and that's not the TF2 I know and love. So I don't really know what the answer is to fixing the engineer stacking problem. Maybe he could be the only class with class limits? I don't really want to suggest that. Like I said, I'm not going to try and fix the engineer crisis here. I'm just letting you know that in his current state, he is too strong when stacked, and it is a problem. And I think removing him from the game might actually be a bit healthier in certain scenarios. Remember, this list is not, I hate these classes, they need to go. This list is, if I had to get rid of 4 of them, I would. I don't want to get rid of any of them. But in the situation where I'm forced to cut the roster down by 4, I have to pick the 4 losers, and these are 2 of them so far. So before we get to the final 4, let's talk about the last one which I'm absolutely not removing, and that is Medic. You can't remove Medic from TF2. I don't really feel anyone is going to argue this point. Yes, I know, the Vaccinator is incredibly brain dead and so is the stock Ubercharge, but you just can't remove Medic. You cannot remove the only dedicated healer from the game. So Medic has to stay, and I actually have a feeling that some people will argue this, even though I really just think no one should argue this. But if you do have some opinions on the matter, please do let me know down below. But in my books, Medic is staying, and he's staying forever. So that leaves us with the orange 4, as I'm going to refer to them from now. Any 2 of these classes I would be fine removing on different days, but I'm going to work them out with you now and come up with my final 2. Okay, so I've done a good few minutes thunking off camera, because this video isn't actually scripted in the slightest. I mean, yes, it's edited, but it's not really scripted. And I've decided I'm going to axe Demo Man as our first candidate. In a scenario where we have to get rid of half of the roster, I don't really think we need to keep Soldier and Demo Man. I feel having one or the other would be just fine, and I feel Soldier is the better designed class. Demo Man, once again, is a problematic class. His problems come in the form of spam, in that there is just no punishment for spamming because you have 2 primaries. Spam all of your rollers. Don't kill anyone? Then just spam all of your stickies. Demo Man is a really strong class, and I don't have a problem with that in the slightest. What I do have a problem with, however, is how he gets that strong to begin with, and the most optimal way to get that strong is to just spam. Now this does mean we would be getting rid of Demo Knight as well and all subsequent Hybrid Knight playstyles, and I'm fine with that. Demo Knight doesn't add anything to TF2. A melee-based class in a first-person shooter where the melee combat is probably the worst thing about the game overall is a recipe for utter disaster. It's wonderful to have him, yes, I am not denying that in the slightest. It can be fun and it can have its moments, sure, but I'm utterly fine with getting rid of it. Demo Knights have been far too cocky for far too long, and I'd love nothing more than to stomp them into the curve. So Demo Man is going and all subsequent playstyles attached. Goodbye, Scotland. And then there were 3. Okay, let's keep Heavy for now. This might change, but for now I think we'll keep him. Heavy is a fun class, and I'm tired of people saying his playstyle is one-dimensional, because it is as dynamic as you want to make it. If you don't want to make it dynamic, then you will have a one-dimensional playstyle. It is a bad player who says that Heavy is one-dimensional, because they haven't given him enough thought and haven't given him enough try to do something else. Now, I am a Heavy main, and that is not a considering factor in this list in the slightest. And regardless of whether I was a Heavy main or not, I would consider removing Heavy if it really came to it. But for now, I think I'm going to keep him. Not just because he is a staple of TF2 and what TF2 is as a whole, not just because he was the original face of the game, but just because people don't give him enough love and they do not give him enough time. And if you really commit to giving Heavy a go, I think you will enjoy it. And I'd like to keep that opportunity open to more people. So now we are left with the final 2, Spy and Pyro, which is kind of ironic that we're left with these 2. On one hand, losing Pyro would suck because the game would become a lot more difficult due to the lack of support options, but on the other hand, losing Spy would suck because medics would basically become uncounterable. Okay, so once again, I've done some off-camera thunking, and I think I'm going to get rid of Pyro, and I think Spy, just by the skin of his teeth, is staying where he is. I think we need Spy to pick off both Heavies and Medics, because without either Spy or Sniper, those 2 classes would become insanely powerful. So congratulations Spy, you're hanging around, albeit for a brief time. And I've done some further reviewing, and I think I'm actually happy with that. These are the 4 classes I would permanently remove from the game, and the reasons for doing so if I had to. And with that being said, I think that's the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. This is a heavily opinionated video, yet I've tried to give the reasonings for my opinions when I could. You are probably going to disagree with this list, and that is utterly fine. But let me know down below, civilly I might add, why you disagree. But with that all being said, thank you once again for watching very, very much, and I will see you later down the sunny road.